You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to your extra bonus episode this week. Well, I guess I should explain just in case you missed the last one. This week, I have 2 shorter episodes that were Patreon exclusives for quite a while. They're shorter because that's all the guests had time for, and it didn't fit the normal format to release them as a normal episode with the bonus and all that. So I'm releasing them both now. I didn't want them to sit behind the paywall any longer, although I will say there is a ton of stuff over there. If you like the show and you need more content, going to support over on Patreon will get you a lot for not a lot. Just $5 a month gets you access to the ad-free feed and the week's bonus episode. So please check that out if you're able to. But on to the episode at hand. On this episode, I'm talking to another guitar legend, Mr. Mike Stern. You may have heard a while back on another episode, there was some weirdness happened with scheduling and time zones and whatever, and Mike actually hopped on an episode while we were recording, which has never happened before, but you know, c'est la vie. We ended up hooking up a few hours later, and this is all he had time for. It's still like a little over 30 minutes of really, really great conversation. Mike is fantastic. Dude, he is absolutely amazing. We talk about gear. We talk about his approach to the guitar. He is just such a legend in this world, and it was an honor to get to talk to him. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I'm glad that we can finally make it public here. So yeah. And it's also worth noting that Mike's audio isn't the greatest, but honestly, even as a guy who's fairly particular about that kind of stuff, the content of what he's saying is so good that it just doesn't really matter. You can totally hear him. It's nothing too horrible or anything like that, but just a heads up, it's a little bit scratchier than you're used to hearing. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with the guitar legend, Mr. Mike Stern. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Mike Stern. What's going on?
Hello, man. Thanks for having me on the show, bro. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, this is really exciting for me. I got the email, and I was like immediately like, all right, this is gonna be a good time. But what I wasn't expecting was I was recording earlier, and we had a little bit of a time mix-up. And so I was recording with another guest. All of a sudden, your face was on the screen, and I was like, "Oh, what? What happened?" But that was funny.
Yeah, but it worked. Here we are.
Absolutely. So, Mike, you've been a busy man for a very long time. Like you are one of the guitar players, as I like to refer to them. You've done so many projects with so many people. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, after playing and doing so many different things, like, what keeps you inspired? What keeps you going and makes you want to keep doing all of this stuff?
That's a good question. And well, first of all, I've been really lucky. I think of it really. I mean, certainly I love to play. I love music and I love to play. But it as I think you're alluding to, it's a lot of work, and to keep going. Sometimes you don't feel inspired. I try to do what I can, no matter what. You know what I mean? If I have a couple hours to practice every day, or I'll just do it, no matter what. Kind of depressed about my playing, which is a lot of times, and because we all, at least for me, and I'm sure this is true with everybody, the more you know, the less you know. It's that kind of thing. It's like there's so much stuff to learn, and to keep learning. So, but I guess the thing that keeps me inspired is just. Of course, having some gigs helps, of course, but more than that, just getting together with cats, the different people and playing, that really helps. Like a friend of mine was just over here and we played for a couple hours, up there. That's cat named Edmund Gilmore. He's a badass bass player, and he's in New York now, and we played over the years, and then he had to split and go home for a while to his country, and then he's back here now. Anyway, people like that I get a chance to play with, and I'll hook it up. I'll always get in touch with somebody and say, hey man, let's play, that kind of thing. And of course, just the momentum of kind of practicing every day and trying to learn some new stuff every day kind of carries you over. If I find I don't practice that much, and then I'm not playing for a few days, it's hard to get back into. So I try not to let it go. You know what I mean? So you're all kind of working on some new stuff.
100%. Yeah.
And there's so much stuff to learn, man. Jeez, it's overwhelming unless you take it a little bit at a time. That's always been the case with me. It's trying to go slow.
Yeah. So how has your practicing evolved over time? Because like for me, I started off the same way as everybody else does. You learn your cowboy chords, you figure out these things called power chords and start doing rock and roll and then like whatever else. But like for me, my practicing has, especially weirdly, the more I've gotten into the guitar world for my living, which is, fully now these days, I actually actively practice less than I used to. And I find I'm more just like, oh, I've got to do a demo of this pedal, or I've got to check this out. So what's your opinion on this piece of gear? Oh, no, let me play it and find out so I can tell you what I think about it or whatever. I play more now than ever, but I actively practice less. Now, the simple act of playing more has made me a better player. But I don't actively practice anymore, and I'm curious, like, what do you do? Well, how do you approach practice?
The same thing. I'm on the road. You don't get a chance to. You want to reserve some of your energy, and you want to. I try to practice a little bit when I'm playing every night. For instance, on a say I got a 3-week tour or something, and I'm playing most of those nights. I'll try to practice a little bit. Sometimes just mentally. I'll be something that I'm kind of more or less sing to myself and kind of know where they visualize in my own head, where the notes are on the guitar neck, but definitely less. The more I play, the less practice. But when I get together with friends, like this friend of mine who was just over here, who's a great bass player, as I mentioned, then we're kind of practicing together. We'll start, say, hey man, yeah, he'll say, hey, I've been working on this thing lately, or did you ever check this out, or some kind of concept, or some kind of line, or a new tune that we both find challenging, and that kind of thing. I'll do that with any number of musicians and try to practice that way. It's kind of cool. It's a great way to, after a certain point, to practice. On the other hand, sometimes there's only stuff that you got to do by yourself to get to a certain point with some new concept or new song or something, and then I just got to make myself find the time, to put it up. But overall, I think I'm practicing pretty steadily. Not a ton, not like when I was younger, when I was practicing 8 hours a day sometimes, with breaks, but still a lot of time. I'll practice a couple hours a day, probably in general. At that would be the most that I'm doing. But then playing on top of that, so it's a lot. I'm playing the guitar a lot, and so it keeps me from stealing hubcaps, basically. It's a great place for me to put my energy. I mean, I've always said that music is a great place to put for anybody to put your energy in, even if you're not a professional musician, just to learn how to play something and to have that as something you can go for and learn more about. And it's a pain in the ass at first, but the more you get glimpses of getting more fluent in whatever kind of language you want to play on the guitar or whatever instrument. Like, for instance, you said you get into rock and power chords, and the more you get into that stuff, the more fun it becomes. At first it's a pain in the ass. Of course, you're trying to learn where the neck, where to play it and how to play it. And your fingers hurt when you're first learning the guitar, of course. You got to get calluses, but it's really worth it. And everybody that I know that plays an instrument, even if they're not professional, said they love it. And some people kind of regret not having enough time to keep going with it. But it's amazing.
And it's one of those things too. I actually didn't think about it fully until maybe the last few years and having some of these conversations, which is, I forget we've played so long. We've all done this. Everybody listening to this podcast pretty much plays, and we forget about those early days. Like, it really did hurt. It was really uncomfortable. Yeah. And like, now it doesn't. It's just what we do. It's second nature. And so you don't even think about it. You do it for fun. But I remember like having to grab my finger and stick it on the thing, trying to get it to do something it didn't want to do. And it hurt. It wasn't fun.
It felt impossible, right? And so you just have to, it's kind of like whenever you start anything new in a weird way, music, of course, is included, and playing an instrument is very much included. It's like an act of faith. You're really kind of taking somebody else's word for it usually. I think it's always good to have a teacher, personally. I've always had a teacher, no matter what level I'm on. And because there's always people that can, first of all, they're not you. So they can hear you in a different way, and also, so you get a different perspective. And there's tons of people that teach great, that know a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be a great player, but that would help, of course, to have somebody who's really good at whatever instrument you're trying to learn. But a lot of people have teachers that are don't play that much, but they just teach, so they know a whole bunch of stuff of how to teach certain things, and most of them, if they're people are pretty good teachers, they can play, and so that really helps. But it's really, when you're first starting off, it's really like you're taking somebody else's word for it that you're going to be able to get this to happen. You know what I mean? That it's going to feel better, that it's worth doing, with the pain that you feel in your fingers at first from getting calluses from playing on the strings, or that all this stuff that you need to think about and kind of learn on whatever instrument you play, is going to be worth it. You're kind of people are telling you that, and you're saying, oh, okay. It was just a natural thing. I was playing a little bit of, my mom wanted me to play piano. She knew I wanted to do something musically. I was jumping around the house all the time and singing or yelling or whatever, some combination thereof. And when I was a kid, and then all of a sudden, instead of piano, which I loved, but it wasn't my, when I picked guitar, it felt like, okay, that's my, instrument that I want to try. So I said, I want to take guitar lessons. My mom said, okay. And once I got into it, I got hooked right away. And I didn't take that many lessons. I took a couple lessons, and then I just learned by ear for a long while, just by checking out. I used to listen to a lot of blues, of course, I still do. And some rockers, like, of course, Jimi Hendrix, of course, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton with the Cream. That whole band was great. And a lot of soul music also. A lot of blues, B.B. King and Albert King, all the Kings. And then a lot of soul music, which was in Washington, D.C. We were playing that stuff all the time on the radio. So that's where I grew up. So I was playing along with the radio, playing along with the records, and take them up to my room. And my mom used to play a lot of jazz records around the house, and I thought that really cool sounding music, and it felt good to me. But I figured it was very foreign from what was being played on the guitar in those days, at least for me. And then I kind of got into it, so I said, well, let me try to take a couple of those records to my room and try to learn the same way I'm learning, trying to cop some blues licks from B.B. King. Maybe I could get a little bit of jazz stuff. And, of course, I got lost immediately. The tunes were hard, more intricate, and the melodies seemed more intricate, and then the solos, the jamming, just seemed like a lot. But that doesn't make it better or worse. I mean, some of the simplest music is my favorite, so it doesn't have to be hard to be something to get your heart. But at the same time, I wanted to learn this more jazz stuff, or how to at least begin to understand it and maybe play a little bit of it. So then I started taking lessons. And I figured at the very least I would get a lot out of it just by studying more jazz stuff, because it's so, at least comparative, compared to the stuff that I was checking out, it was more complicated. So I would learn a lot from just doing it. And that's what happened. Right away, my other playing, my blues, my rock playing, my, just rhythm guitar stuff, all that, just got better. Because I was concentrating on something that was so challenging for me.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
And then the more I got into it, the more I loved it. So I just began to get more fluent in the language of jazz, and being able to play that on a guitar and kind of mix it up with other influences that I already had from Hendrix or from Albert King or, that kind of stuff. So it was natural for me when I started kind of playing, after I started getting more into jazz, to kind of combine stuff a bit. Mm-hmm. Combine styles a little bit. Because I love, for instance, horn lines. Saxophone, I transcribed a lot when I started to learn how to read, and I could actually write out solos eventually, slowly at first, and then it got faster. But that's a lot of work, but I would do it and get into trying to put some of those lines on the guitar, trumpet lines or saxophone lines on the guitar, and then also play, more like that kind of phrasing, kind of horn-like phrasing, horn-like sound, kind of more of a vocal kind of sound. That's one of the reasons I use what I use. I use a couple of amps, kind of stereo, so it's not so plucky. It sounds like you don't hear the pick as strong. I like that sometimes when you hear the pick right really definitely. But there's a lot of times I want it to sound like vocal, the sound vocal, which I think a lot of blues players already had because they were bending strings. So it seemed, when I was checking out horn players, it seemed natural to bend some of the strings because that's what they're doing. And that's how you get kind of a more vocal approach and have the guitar sound more like a horn, or more vocal kind of sounding, is bending strings or slurring, and also picking very light so you don't hear the pick so much. That's what I was that was just my priority, that's kind of what I wanted to try to be able to do, and sound more like a horn player. And cop some of those lines too, like Michael Brecker, I worked with him, and Randy Brecker I still play with sometimes. Two amazing saxophone and trumpet player. Mike, of course, died like 7 or 8 years ago, and Randy's still going strong, and I played with him a bunch together and separately, and they are amazing musicians, and were amazing musicians in Mike's case, but always will be amazing to me, even though he's not around. I mean, those cats are phenomenal, both of them, and so I learned a lot from playing with guys like that, and trying to, since they're horn players, I could really, and playing with him every night, I really tried to get, not just from transcribing, but from playing with other horn players, trying to get the guitar to sound kind of my idea of more of a vocal sound, might sound, where you use air to make the sound. So, yeah, it's cool.
So when you went in a direction I was wanting to get into, which is, supposedly this is a gear show. So you talked about you kind of got some stereo amps. I love playing in stereo. I hardly ever play in mono anymore. I'm kind of obsessed with it. But like, what does the rig look like these days?
So for me, I used to have these amps. The one was a 410-inch speaker cabinet with what was this? I forget the name of the speakers. Very common speakers, and I got it because Hartke was making me. I was on the road with Mike Brecker, and they were one of the guys that started Hartke, Ron Lorman, was the other partner. Not his name wasn't on there, but Hartke amplifiers, and he made me a guitar amp with those aluminum speakers that they use. I think they're aluminum that they use for the bass, and it sounded great, and I was using a Yamaha with 212s on the other side. They weren't exactly the same, but it worked. And then those speakers, they didn't really have it together at that point, so they were breaking somehow with guitar. So I think eventually they just settled playing, making bass amps, just stayed there. But the sound was great. But then, since I had these speaker cabinets, I was on the road with Mike Brecker, and the speakers were breaking a lot. So I just bought some other, and I can't remember. It was like Celestians, but not them. Some other speakers, and put all 410. They were 410-inch speakers. Put them in this cabinet that I had. That were originally those Hartke guitar speakers were in. That were unfortunately not working. So I started using that, a 410-inch cabinet, and this twin 12 guitar amp. And back in those days, it was okay to bring your own equipment. Actually, promoters would want you to bring your own equipment, even to Europe or on the road, even though it would cost something on the planes. It wasn't nearly what it costs today. Somehow it didn't. You could get it by with go on the road with a whole bunch of equipment, and it would cost you maybe $100 to get it on the plane, kind of thing, or less. And now you'd have to buy the plane to get it.
Yeah.
Eventually I'm now renting a couple of Fender amps, like Blackface Twin amplifiers, which to me they're cool sounding amps, and you can find them everywhere. So rent, because you have to rent nowadays. So unless I'm home, and I have a couple of those that I own them, but a couple of twin reverbs, but they're cool. They work, and I use this old thing that no one even can find anymore. It's an SPX. Remember those things, SPX 90? It's a multi-effect.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
For one patch, I use it. So I love this flight case with 2 SPXs in there just for one patch in each. And somehow I can't get anybody to just build me a pedal that sounds the same. Something close, but it's not the same. So I've just resigned myself to using that. And that gives me a kind of it's a pitch change. It's not people think it's a chorus sometimes, and it's really a pitch change. To me, it just warms up the sound of a I'm using a Tele style guitar. It's actually Yamaha came a bunch of years, like 20 years ago, and asked me to. They wanted to make a signature guitar, a Mike Stern signature guitar. So I didn't exactly turn them down. Great. And they did a great job. They took this Tele that I used to use, which was kind of a mutt. It had a broadcaster neck and a kind of a heavy body, and they kind of copied it in their own way. And the one that they sell a limited edition, but they sell them, and they're a little lighter than the one that I use. But they're all good, and the one that I use is a little heavier. It sounds warmer to me. But to get more of that warm kind of vocal sound, I also use that pitch change effect. And then I use Boss pedals, basically, which are, and I use super overdrive, but I just started doing this. It's kind of like almost like a booster, and like a compressor kind of. It just kind of works as like a compressor because I have the drive all the way down, so it has no distortion on it, and I have the level pretty hot because if you keep the drive down, you need more level, and then I have another super overdrive Boss, and which is set like a distortion where if I want to rock out, I turn that thing on, and then I have a digital delay that I keep on all the time, a DD3, Boss DD3, and then another DD3 that I have just for long delay. So, like, let me see. Actually, maybe you can hear this real quick.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
A strong host game needs a strong wing game. Add Popeye's wings to your game day spread, and the crew won't just be cheering, they'll be salivating. With 8 bold, crispy Louisiana flavors to satisfy everyone's taste buds, our wing game is strong enough to always get you the W. At $5.99 for a 6-piece, order bone-in or boneless for your next watch party. Someone just wrapped up the title of Most Valuable Host.
Have that chicken from Popeyes.
At participating U.S. restaurants, price may vary, tax extra.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. If you're looking for flexible workouts, Peloton's got you covered. Summer runs or playoff season meditations. Whatever your vibe, Peloton has thousands of classes built to push you and has something there to adapt with you whether you need a challenge or rest. Peloton has everything you need whenever you need it. Find your push. Find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
I'm set up here, so the long delay is just for an effect. It's just for like, that's kind of the basic sound right here. Here's the long delay. Right? It's not an effect. I just use that for an occasional effect. This, I don't know if you can hear that. That's the shorter delay that's on all the time. It kind of works as a reverb. I find that these Boss digital delay pedals they're kind of like they got a little reverb built into the delay, kind of almost. Because there's no reverb on my amp. And you can hear that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if it's off, it's on. And here it is. And then I use this, I got this new pedal I'm not like a real pedal guy. I did a tour with Eric Johnson and we did a record called Eclectic, and he's beautiful and a great, wonderful guitar player, and he loves jazz as well as blues. He's kind of like me, so that's why we called it Eclectic, because we like a lot of kinds of music. And did some of my tunes, some of his tunes, and he has a big pedal board with a lot of pedal, boutique, really cool stuff. And me, I keep it simple. I've got like what I showed you, plus this relatively new edition of this multi-overtone. Also, all this stuff is Boss. I said it like that. I used to have one of those octavers that was also a Boss pedal, but it was lower. And this low stuff from this doesn't sound as good to me, but it sounds cool from that higher stuff. So that's it. That's the extent. I have a chromatic tuner also.
Sure.
That powers all this stuff, I guess, and also I can kind of get in tune every so often.
Well,
yeah.
Well, thank you for taking me through that. I really appreciate that. That segues nicely. I know you got to go, so I got the classic questions I like to wrap this podcast up on, and I think this is a nice segue. But before we do that, I like to give the guests, you're talking to a couple thousand people right now. You can shout out anybody you want to shout out, plug anything you want to plug, say hi to your buddies or whatever. The floor is yours.
I definitely want to mention that I have a brand new record out, and it just came out on September 13th, something like that. It's on Mack Avenue Records, which is a really good jazz label. And I guess they do some other stuff too, but basically it's a jazz label. And it's got some badass players on it. Well, I was lucky to get everybody, and that everybody was interested, and we were able to do it. So it's Christian McBride is playing bass. One of the bass players, and let me see, Antonio Sanchez is playing drums. Amazing drummer, amazing at the Christians, amazing bass player. Chris Potter is playing tenor saxophone, and Jim Beard, who unfortunately passed. He died. He was playing with Steely Dan for years, and he got sick. He got something, I guess it was cancer, and then something else happened, unfortunately, in the hospital. So it was a shock and tragedy. But I worked with him for years, and he helped me so much. And he produced this record. The record's called Echoes and Other Songs. And Dennis Chambers is also on this record on a couple of different cuts. And so the first lineup I told you, Christian McBride, Chris Potter, and Jim Beard, and Antonio Sanchez. And my wife is on the record too, Lainey Stern, playing some African instrument, just a little here and there for certain kind of cool sounds every so often. But and then the other 3 tunes, there were 8 tunes with those guys. The 3 tunes were with Richard Bona, a great bass player, badass singer and bass player, African cat, and who lives in the States for years. And Dennis Chambers is the drummer with him on those 3 cuts that they played on. And Bob Franceschini is the tenor saxophone player on those 3 cuts. So 11 tunes in all. I'm really happy the way it came out, and I'm usually really self-critical about those guys just played their asses off. So I was really happy they put so much love into it. It seemed like, and it was incredible. And then I wrote all the tunes, which I always like to try to do if I'm going to do a record. I try to write all the tunes and get as much out of it as I can in terms of learning from it, from the process. And so it's called Echoes and Other Songs, and it's just out. So I wanted to definitely plug that.
Awesome.
And man, thank you very much for the opportunity, bro. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really excited to get to talk to you. So this is great for me too. I got the classic questions, and everybody, by the way, the link to all that stuff, the link to the record will be down in the description of this. If you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this at, or watching it, or whatever platform, there's so many platforms now. It's on every platform possible. Wherever you're listening to this at, in the description, there will be the link so you can go right there and check it out. It'll be easy peasy for you. But final questions. First one, and this is interesting because you're very Boss heavy, but I asked this of everybody. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Is this a question for me?
Yeah, your favorite Boss pedal.
My favorite? That's impossible to say. I guess the DDL is something that I use all the time. That digital. Okay. And yeah. I a close second would be that Super Overdrive that I use. I used to use a DS1, which is an orange pedal, kind of for the same purpose, but this one sounds a little bit better to me. The Super Overdrive, it's a yellow pedal. I usually go by I'm terrible with all technology, terrible. So I just go by I use the orange one, and now I'm using the yellow one, that kind of thing. I'm so bad at all this shit, it's frightening. But, yeah, but so that's those two I like. Yeah. Cool.
All right, and the final question, what is your favorite kind of pizza?
Pizza? All of them. Well, I play, a lot in Europe. I kind of get a chance to play all over the place, actually, all over. I just got back from China with my band, and then my wife and I played with another band in Iceland just recently. Robin Ford was that gig also. He hooked me up with that gig. It was really a ball. So we're playing all the time, but once you've had Italian pizza in Italy in certain places, forget about it. So, but stuff in New York, Original Rays, I guess, if it's still going, and this Michael Brecker actually wrote a tune called Original Rays on one of his records because he liked that pizza so much, and it had some double meaning, of course, as well. But Original Rays is really good. But you get a chance to eat some pizza in Italy and Sicily especially, but all of it's good.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of, in New York, I'm a big fan of John's on Bleecker. I like that place quite a bit. Yeah.
Man, yeah. Actually, Bitter End, day after tomorrow at the club in New York. It's called the Bitter End. It's been around forever. Everybody's played there. Bob Dylan and I don't know, Led Zeppelin. No, not them, but a bunch of cats. Amazing amount of famous. It's been that club has been going forever. So there's tons of people that play there, jazz groups and rock groups, and we're playing there on this. When is it? The 5th on Saturday. That's called the Bitter End. So, but that's real near. That's on Bleecker Street. It's 147 Bleecker Street. So I'm gonna get some pizza. Well, thanks for reminding me.
There you go. That's what I'm here for. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking to you. I feel like I could talk to you all day long, but I know you got things to do, so I'll sign off and let you get to them.
Thanks, bro. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. And again, if you want to get more nuggets like that and you want to make sure you get them soon, go over to Patreon. Patreon is the place where these drop. They've been living there for quite a while, especially in Brian's case. And 99% of the content does stay back there. Most of it does not come out for public consumption. So if you'd like more and you'd like to support the show, that is the place to do it. And if you can't do that, I totally get it. But if you could share this episode with somebody that would like it, or any episode really, share your favorite one with your favorite person and force them to listen to it. That's how this podcast grows. Okay, I'm just kidding. You don't have to force them. But if you do, that's your own prerogative. And that will help the podcast. All of the sharing, all of that really, really helps out a lot. Thank you all so much for everything. And I will talk to you on the internet very, very soon.